Hallo und willkommen zurück zu The Forgotten City mit eurer Eule. Wir gucken uns jetzt mal die
How
ägyptische
is it
Unterwelt an.
possible to feel watched at every moment and yet still be so alone?
Hui. Da ist die Tafel. Nergal, tobender König. In Kuniform. Sumerisch. Ich möchte meinen Bogen haben. Der macht Licht und damit fühle ich mich wohler. Ja, ich weiß, du beobachtest mich. Ach, aber mir kann hier gar nichts passieren. Meine Katze sitzt neben mir und passt auf mich auf. Das sollte in der ägyptischen Unterwelt noch irgendwas nützen. Bitte erschreck mich nicht. Barrikade. Da sind sie weggelaufen. Da vorne zeigt wer. Das klingt gut. Ist das dunkel? Hier war keiner so freundlich, Licht anzumachen. Hier war aber auch einfach schon lange keiner mehr. Antike Steintafel. Fremdling. Beherzigt die letzten Worte von Namkusu. Seid Zeuge der Konsequenzen, die wir erfuhren und betrauert uns. Wir taten unser Bestes, um so zu leben, wie es die Götter befahlen. Wir pflanzten und ernteten gemeinsam. Wir teilten Brot und Bier. Wir nahmen Neuankömmlinge mit offenen Armen auf, als gehörten sie zur Familie. Aber mit jedem Neuankömmling entfremdeten wir uns immer mehr voneinander. Und bald schon war es, als würden wir uns kaum kennen. Als jegliche Nähe zwischen uns verloren gegangen war, pflanzten meine Brüder und Schwestern nur noch für sich selbst und aßen und tranken allein. Und dort, mit in den leeren Raum zwischen uns, begann die Sünde, Wurzeln zu schlagen. Nergals Wächter sind erwacht und stürmten auf unsere Barrikaden zu, lernt aus unserem Unglück. Weiter kam er offenbar nicht. Ja. Ich wollte gerade sagen, was ist denn das für eine Messingplatte? Interessant. Gut, nicht einfach auf Dinge treten. Korrodierte Messingplatte. Eine korrodierte Messingplatte mit sumerischen Markierungen drauf. Es scheint eine Druckplatte für eine Art Falle zu sein. Klappt das nochmal? Nein. Ah, hier kann ich nicht lang. Geräusche, die die Leute machen, wenn sie sich nach einem umgucken, sind immer ein bisschen gruselig. Hier ist noch so eine Platte. Kann man sich hier in die Nische verziehen? Ja. Hui. Nicht du, Katze. Einmal aus dem Weg. So, jetzt sehe ich auch wieder was. Ah, da kamen wir eben nicht durch. das Gefühl, hier langsam alles zu bluten. Das sieht offiziell aus. Ich glaube, es ist unklug, da drauf zu treten, aber ich bin neugierig.
When I told you that you would not find a way back up, that was not a prediction. That was a promise. You will die here.
Oh je. Es gibt keinen Grund, dies in Gewalt zu enden.
I disagree. I warned you against coming down here, against perpetuating this sacrilege, but you persisted. You have undermined and dishonored the true God of the underworld. How did you think this would end, if not with bloodshed?
Hört mir doch zu.
Very well, I will listen. But if I sense deception, or if you further insult my gods, I will carry out my threat. So tell me, why should I let you live after you salvaged this instrument of blasphemy?
So, wenn etwas durch die Wahrheit zerstört werden kann, dann sollte es auch durch die Wahrheit zerstört werden. Es ist keine Schande, auf dem Werk von Menschen aufzubauen, die vor euch gelebt zu haben. Ich möchte nur alle Tafeln zurücklegen, die vom entweihten Obelisken entfernt wurden. Probieren wir das.
That may be true of many things, but this is different. If our gods were copied and corrupted from an older civilization, does that not mean they are false? Does that not mean our prayers to our gods all fell on deaf ears because we were not even addressing them by their true names?
Das hätte keinen Unterschied gemacht. Ich glaube nicht, dass die Götter überhaupt Gebete erhört. Ui. Wenn Götter existieren, ist es nicht möglich, dass jeder von ihnen mehr als einen wahren Namen hat.
Now that I think about it, my people would sometimes call Osiris the god of many names. Perhaps it is so. But the underworld of my people is so different to this one, and so unlike the way it was described by our priests. Many of my ancestors endured great hardship to live good lives so that we may descend to the duat in death and be judged accordingly. We prepare to have our hearts weighed on Anubis' scales and to swear ourselves innocent of sin before the 42 assessors of Ma'at. And yet, I arrive here to find the Book of the Dead contained only a seed of truth. And now I ask myself, did our priests steal and embellish the stories of an older people and feed us lies all our lives simply to trick us into obedience?
Ist es nicht an sich gut, eine gute Person sein zu wollen?
I am not sure I follow. Speak plainly.
Selbst wenn eure Überzeugungen über das Leben nach dem Tod nicht ganz korrekt waren, ist es nicht das Wichtigste, dass sie euch motiviert haben, ein gutes Leben zu führen? Oder wenn ihr im Leben nur gut wart, weil ihr eine Belohnung erwartet habt, wart ihr dann wirklich ein guter Mensch? Vielleicht lieber das Erste. Ich glaube, er ist gerade nicht in der Stimmung, wo wir ihn ärgern sollten.
Perhaps there is some truth in that. What is your point?
Werdet ihr euren guten Charakter aufgeben, jetzt wo es am wichtigsten ist, nur weil ihr herausgefunden habt, dass ihr getäuscht wurdet?
You are persuasive. Very well. I will let you live, and you may do what you will with that plaque. I will remain here for a while and attempt to learn what I can about the foundations of my people's beliefs. Go.
Lernen ist besser als wütend sein. Hihi. Ja! Damn it. Da habe ich mich selbst reingelegt.
I will remain here for a while and attempt to learn what I can about the foundations of my people's beliefs. Go.
Na gut. Liebes Spiel, du hast gewonnen. Ich gehe außen rum. Abash, kannst du mir sagen, wo der Ausgang ist? Geh dahin, wo Licht ist. Ah, da kann ich nicht hin. Da geht's auch nicht weiter. Ich möchte meinen Bogen haben. Hier ist Licht. Auch nach oben. Ah. Ich glaube, das hier ist der Ausgang. Ja, ist es. Dann brauche ich auch den Bogen nicht mehr.
Ah, you've returned.
Ja.
Good to see you again, friend. Did you find what you need?
Ja, habe ich.
I
Offenbar.
enjoyed our chat, but please keep my presence here a secret. Yes?
Ja, das ist in Ordnung. Der Ecke kommt man immer so schwer vorbei. So, dann gehen wir doch jetzt mal zu dem Tempel. Ja. Nach draußen. So. Paradoxon. Ja, dann müssen wir jetzt nur noch zu dem Tempel hoch. Und dann schauen wir mal, wie gut wir mit all dem klarkommen.
Be careful who you trust.
Ja, ja, danke, Julia. Hallo, Sisyphos. So, das sieht griechisch aus. Dann ist das ägyptisch. Und das ist sumerisch. Dann schauen wir uns das doch mal an. Nett, wir sind mal wieder eingesperrt. Hat seinen Namen. Hades, Herr der Vielen, Nergal, tobender König, Osiris, Pluto. Machen wir mit Hades. Nergal. Osiris? Wahrscheinlich müssen wir alle Namen nehmen. Und Pluto. Dieser Tempel ist wesentlich größer, als er von draußen aussieht. Alles? Ah, das sind die verschiedenen... Wir müssen nicht alle nennen, sondern das, was zu dem Tempel passt. Dann ist jetzt Osiris. Osiris? Die Statuen scheinen zumindest der gleichen Meinung zu sein wie wir. Na egal. Das ist neu. Ich glaube, wir haben gerade das Genre gewechselt. Ist das die Erde? Letztlich treffen wir uns. Das war die ganze Zeit die Stimme.
And here you are. Allow me to introduce myself. As you have already gathered, I've been known by many names. Nergal to the Sumerians, Osiris to the Egyptians, Hades to the Greeks, and Pluto to the Romans. But the one constant through it all has been my title, God of the Underworld. And I've been watching you with curiosity, mortal, ever since your arrival. You are unlike the others, aren't you? And what is more, you carry a weapon that was never intended for mortals to wield, and you do it so brazenly. But there will be time for your reckoning later. First, as a reward for undoing the desecration of my obelisk, I will allow you to satisfy your curiosity. Ask what you will.
Ja, antworten. Es wäre schon lustig, ihn damit anzufangen. Ich meine, ich habe jeden dazu gefragt.
My story is many thousands of years long. You will need to be more specific. What do you wish to know?
Ihr seid ein Gott.
It is a matter of perspective. God is a label I was given by you mortals, not one I gave myself. Your ancestors revered me because to them, my knowledge and technology made me incomprehensibly powerful, just as you might seem so to an insect. But despite all that, there are rules even I must obey.
Wer ist die Frau zu eurer Linken?
This is my beloved. Like me, she has been known by many names. Ereshkigal to the Sumerians, Isis to the Egyptians, Persephone to the Greeks, and Proserpina to the Romans. Or perhaps you might know her as the goddess of springtime, the cycle of life and renewal.
Wir werden sie nicht verraten. Ist diese Frage wirklich nötig? Nein, eigentlich nicht. Wer ist das zu eurer Rechten?
That is my servant. You would have met by the river, though she wears many faces and goes by many names. Kumutubal to the Sumerians, Kirti to the Egyptians, Charon to the Greeks, and Charon to the Romans. Her role is to ferry souls between the mortal world and this one, and to make their transition as seamless as possible. For that, she earned herself the infamous, if erroneous, moniker, the Ferryman. You will talk more later. For now, ask your questions.
Lass uns über was anderes reden.
As you wish.
Was ist das für ein Ort?
It has come to be known simply as the Underworld, and it exists because of a wager I made long ago.
Wegen einer Wette? Was war der Einsatz?
That is a long story, one that began over 3,000 years ago and continues to this day. You see, long ago my kin and I set out from our home on Elysium to search for other forms of life among the stars. We discovered your planet and witnessed your kind evolving from primates into something lawless and barbaric. You all but destroyed yourselves, your 2 short lives being extinguished by violence and ignorance and disease. Yet Proserpina saw raw potential in you, and persuaded the rest of us it would be squandered without our intervention and stewardship. So we revealed ourselves to your people in a place called Sumer. We offered guidance in agriculture, toolcraft, and law, and you called us gods. For a time you flourished, but soon you were too many for us to oversee. And as you spread from that cradle of civilization, we saw something disturbing. We had sown the seeds of dependency and confusion, and soon you returned to your old ways of violence and ignorance, this time in our name. My kin had seen enough, and gave up on your kind, condemning you as barbaric and chaotic, scarcely more than animals. We began preparations to return to Elysium, our home world, a utopia unspoilt by conflict and unimaginable in its beauty. But my Proserpina could not bear to abandon your kind without guidance, and knowing it would force the rest of us to leave her behind, she made an extraordinary sacrifice. She gave up her immortality to descend permanently to the ranks of humankind. And so she began her inescapable trajectory toward death. Horrified, I acted swiftly. I placed her in suspended animation in a deep frozen sleep to prevent age and sickness from claiming her. And then I pleaded with Proserpina's father, who the Romans called Jupiter, to bring her with us to Elysium. It was and is my hope that once there, we might one day learn to undo what she has done to herself. But he refused. I did everything I could to persuade him, but he would not relent. He would rigidly uphold his final pronouncement. Humans were unworthy of ascension to Elysium, and no exceptions would be made. But seeing that I was aggrieved, he proposed a wager, the terms of which were as follows. If even one human city could prove itself capable of living without sin for a single year, then Proserpina and all of humanity would be permitted to join us in Elysium. My part would be to remain behind, the last of my kind, to watch over you without interfering, and to sit in silent judgment. And so my reward has been to languish here, enduring a 3,000-year winter, waiting for the day your kind proves itself worthy of her faith in you, so that I might take her with me to Elysium and unthaw my goddess of springtime. And here I am, after all this time, still waiting.
Oh je. Wer sind eure Verwandten?
There were also gods who, like me, have been known by many names, but perhaps you knew them by their Roman names. Our leader, Jupiter, as well as Neptune, Saturn, Juno, Minerva, Mars, Venus, Apollo, Diana, Vulcan, Vesta, Ceres, and of course, my beloved Proserpina.
Wer hat die Stadt gebaut?
As the first wave of your kind arrived from Sumer, I had them build a city in their own fashion, so that they might be comfortable and recreate their lives here. I had them build the entrance as a vertical shaft leading to baths, to cleanse them of the sins of their former lives, and to prevent escape. I watched wave after wave of Sumerians arrive, and as their civilization declined over the centuries, they were replaced by Egyptians. Of course, believing themselves to be the superior civilization, the Egyptians promptly built over what had been built before, and made all the same mistakes. After another 1,000 years, the Greeks began to arrive, and then the Romans, and they all did the same thing. They built upon the underworlds of their predecessors, renamed their gods, and ensured their foundations were forgotten.
Wie habt ihr entschieden, wer hierher kommt?
To ensure the wager was fair, it was important that my subjects were chosen at random. To this end, I had my servant distribute 1,000 tokens fashioned from silver, a rare element at the time, across all of Sumer. Whoever died while in possession of one of them would be located by my servant and ferried to this place, with no memory of how they arrived. As the tokens were discovered, they were traded, smelted, and fashioned into trinkets, and eventually
Der Silberanhänger.
coins, spreading to Egypt like seeds on the wind. Later, when they spread to Greece, they would come to be known as Charon's obol, or as coins for the ferryman. Some placed coins in the mouths of their dead, hoping they would awaken here, though they had no way of knowing which coins were fashioned from the original tokens. In fact, almost all. And so after this wave destroys itself, as it is destined to do, your kind will have squandered the last of its potential to ascend beyond this rock, and Persepolis along with it.
Wie haben die Menschen von der Unterwelt erfahren?
It is a regrettable story. One of the first men who came to this place was a king of Sumer and a troublemaker. To be rid of him, I returned him to his people, on the condition that my servant erased his memories of this place. But the erasure did not take completely, and he told stories of this place as if describing memories of a dream. His tales were committed to writing, which came to be known as the Epic of Gilgamesh, and his words were twisted and distorted over generations. Later, the Egyptians would adapt Sumer's stories of the underworld, making them wildly intricate and labyrinthine. Their Book of the Dead and Book of Gates bore less and less resemblance to this place in their priests' pursuit of profit. Then, when the Greeks began to arrive, they proved far more cunning, and in a series of incidents that will not be repeated, 5 of them escaped. A warrior named Heracles, 2 kings named Sisyphus and Theseus, a poet named Orpheus, and a Trojan named Aeneas. They each told embellished tales of this place, how to get here, and how to escape. And so from Sumer to Egypt, Greece to Rome, your kind has always told each other stories about this place, though each story contained only a seed of truth.
Lass uns über was anderes reden.
Of course.
So, seid ihr für die goldene Regel verantwortlich? Die große Frage.
That is merely the name your people have given to it, but yes, it is my doing.
Warum die Leute in Gold verwandeln?
That is a story dating back to the very first wave. After the Sumerians finished building their city, the self-declared ruler threw a banquet to celebrate. Now this man was unmarried, and many women were vying to become his wife, a prestigious position of power and influence in a new world. Of all the women, 2 were particularly ambitious. Both were beautiful, and both arrived at the banquet wearing eye-catching dresses and painted faces, their hair woven in elaborate fashion. The first woman, recognizing that she would require an advantage to win the ruler's affection, draped herself in jewelry, ornate necklaces, bracelets, and rings fashioned from gold. Seeing this ostentatious display, the second woman grew envious, for she had no such jewelry at her disposal. She prayed aloud to any gods that would listen to cover her in gold, and when her prayer went unanswered, she took matters into her own hands. While the others indulged at the banquet, the second woman summoned the first for a discussion in a quiet place. She checked that nobody was watching, and pushed her rival from the top of the ziggurat, where she broke her neck on the rocks below. But I was watching, and I decided to answer her prayer. I took the golden bow left behind by Diana, and I shot that woman in the heart, covering her from head to toe in a layer of molten gold. And I left her to stand there, that she might serve as a grim reminder of what befalls those who sin in my domain. But that was not enough, for the entire city was tainted by her sin, and the wager could no longer be won. So I had no choice but to wipe the slate clean. I gilded them all, to make way for a new wave, and began the wager again. And to this day, each of them, and all who came after, line the halls of this city, inanimate, but conscious. Suspended in time with only their sight and hearing preserved, so they may bear witness to and lament the folly of your kind for eternity.
Das ist natürlich eine gute Idee.
Sentinels.
Also seid ihr für das Erlöschen all dieser Leben verantwortlich.
I give your kind a second chance of life, as well as ample warning about my law. And when you disobey, and you always disobey, you force my hand, bringing terrible suffering upon yourselves. And so you ask if I am the one destroying your lives. And I say, no, you destroy yourselves. I am merely the means by which you do it.
Aber wenn du die Leute hier reinsetzt und weißt, dass sie die Regeln brechen werden und trotzdem sagst, sie dürfen die Regeln nicht brechen, ansonsten bestrafst du sie, ist das dumm. Woher kommen diese goldenen Bögen?
When my kin departed, they left behind many relics which I inherited. A consolation prize of sorts. The golden bow originally belonged to one of my kin, who the Romans called Diana. As my collection of golden statues grew, I chose the most ferocious among them, and equipped them each with a duplicate of her bow, and tasked them with hunting down the Forsaken at my behest. They became known simply as Furies.
Was ist für euch eine Sünde?
I've always considered that the cornerstone of morality is the ability to determine right from wrong on one's own. No attempt to lay out rules like your Code of Hammurabi or your 12 Tables of the Roman Republic can ever cover all possible scenarios. This should come as no surprise to you, since the core principle has been expressed in many forms by many of your civilizations. The Egyptians made a rudimentary attempt with do to the doer to make him do. The Greeks refined it with avoid doing what you would blame others for doing. The Roman Stoics added, treat your inferior as you would wish your superior to treat you. Even the so-called cultists hiding among you often say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is the simplest of concepts, and each one of you is born with the faculties required to apply it to any situation. Yet none of the peoples who expressed this rule were able to uphold it. Curious, is it not?
Das Prinzip ist nicht so einfach anzuwenden, wie es klingt. Es scheint auch nicht so, als hättet ihr daran festgehalten. Angriff oder fühlt sich überlegen.
For you, perhaps.
Vielleicht sollte ich doch eher auf Angriff gehen. Woher wisst ihr, wann jemand eine Sünde begeht? Er hört ja durch die Statue.
I'm able to commune with all of the statues in the city. Their ears are my ears, and their eyes are my eyes.
Ist Proserpina auf die gleiche Weise mit den Statuen verbunden?
If she was still conscious, I suppose she could, but she's not. Why do you ask?
Nur so.
Then what an odd question.
Ich bin manchmal so. Ich bin nur neugierig. Ich habe hier schreckliche Dinge gesehen, die für euch keine Sünde waren. Wie konntet ihr zulassen, dass solche Sachen geschehen?
Do you plan to speak in sweeping generalizations, or are you going to give me an example?
Experimente an
The
goldenen Statuen.
midwife in the palace, yes. How is that inconsistent with the rule?
Sie würde nicht wollen, dass man an ihr herum experimentiert, nachdem sie vergoldet wurde.
The rule is do unto others, meaning other people. Those statues are something else now. Bloodless shadows, mere shapes of their former selves. They are forsaken. What happens to them is no concern of mine.
Das scheint mir eine extrem wörtliche Auslegung der Regel zu sein.
Applying this rule always requires us to interpret the meaning of the words. A literal interpretation helps to minimize the ambiguities of your primitive language.
Wenn unsere Sprache voller Zweideutigkeiten ist, macht das die Regel dann nicht von Natur aus subjektiv und unzuverlässig?
Supposing you are right, then my law has been broken, and I should turn you all to gold immediately. Is that what you want?
Äh,
Now tell me, what other sins do you believe I have overlooked?
Ich glaube, das hilft alles nicht. Kein Wunder, dass die Leute sagen, die Götter seien grausam. Ich habe genug gehört. Dies seid lediglich unverlässig und unsachlich eure Moral ist. Ihr seid nicht besser als im Unterscheiden von Recht und Unrecht als jeder Mensch. Dafür sollten wir vielleicht die vorigen auch nochmal durchgehen.
The merchant. How is that inconsistent with the rule I've outlined?
Er würde auch nicht wollen, dass jemand einen unverschämten Preis für die Medizin verlangt, die er braucht, wenn er im Sterben liegt.
I disagree. Having watched this merchant, that is precisely what he would expect from others, and he would be quite capable of paying the price anyway.
Ihr könnt nicht wissen, was er erwarten wird. Das ist reine Spekulation.
Applying this rule always requires speculation to some degree. It requires us to ask what another person would want if they found themselves in another situation.
Ist sie dadurch nicht grundsätzlich subjektiv und unzuverlässig?
Not if we're wise enough to know the mind of man.
Und ihr glaubt, ihr kennt die Gedanken anderer Menschen?
Supposing you're right, then my law has been broken, and I should turn you all to gold immediately. Is that what you want?
Nein.
Now tell me, what other sins do you believe I have overlooked?
Wir gehen jetzt nicht alle durch. So.
Do you honestly think you could do better?
Nein, aber genau das meine ich ja. Niemand kann absolut perfekte Entscheidungen darüber treffen, was richtig und was falsch ist. Die Macht sollte niemand haben. Ihr seid zum Tyrann geworden.
I should strike you down for that.
Nein, ich möchte ihn nicht mehr im Bogen beschießen. Und wenn ihr das tätet, würde ihr meinen Standpunkt bestätigen.
Now, did you have any other questions before your reckoning?
Lass uns über was anderes reden.
Very well.
Das war alles.
Good. Then now it is time for your reckoning. Only, it seems, something is wrong. It has long been within my power to see to the hearts of mortals and weigh their deeds in life. But when I peer into you, I see only a blank slate, as if you did not exist until you appeared in this city. How is this possible? Charon, where did you find this one?
I do not remember ferrying you. How did you come here?
Gehen wir mit der Wahrheit.
If that is true, then I sense the intervention of someone powerful.
How did you come to be in this time, mortal? Who brought you here?
We cannot know.
So, das war... Ich hatte mir von euch eine Antwort auf diese Frage erhofft.
I do not know. My kin departed long ago, and Proserpine has slumbered for 3,000 years.
Solltet ihr es nicht wissen als Gott der Unterwelt?
Tread lightly, mortal. Enough of this. It seems I will need to put your reckoning on hold for now. But answer this. Why have you come here? What is it you seek?
Ich möchte, dass ihr der goldenen Regel ein Ende setzt. Ich will nur weg. Ich möchte ihn umbringen. Ich möchte, dass ihr der goldenen Regel ein Ende setzt.
Your hubris is amusing, so I will allow you to make your case. But I warn you, if you anger me or waste my time with lies or wrong-headed arguments, you face death here. So, tell me, why should I put an end to the so-called golden rule?
Wenn ihr das aus Liebe macht, solltet ihr wissen, dass Proserpine euch nicht liebt? Nein. Wie könnt ihr von uns erwarten, frei von Sünde zu leben, wenn ihr es nicht einmal selbst schafft? Die goldene Regel korrumpiert diese Stadt und sorgt dafür, dass ihr niemals den Einsatz gewinnt.
How so? And be specific. You have made a grave allegation, and I expect you to back it up.
Decius preist die lebensrettende Medizin an, weil er weiß, dass niemand sie mit Gewalt nehmen kann. Rufius ist so paranoid geworden, dass er auf Schatten wie Virgils Sexualität anspringt. Malleolus hat Menschen in Schuldknechtschaft gefangen, indem er sie davon überzeugt hat, dass eine Rebellion euer Gesetz brechen würde.
His cruelty does seem to grow greater by the day.
Lesius preist die lebensrettende Medizin an.
True. I have witnessed him doing that.
Und Rufius ist paranoid.
He is a volatile and confused fellow, that one.
Das sind alle Beispiele, die mir einfallen.
Pathetic. You will need to do a lot better than that.
Wie könnt ihr von uns erwarten, frei von Sünde zu leben, wenn ihr nicht immer selbst schafft?
That is a very serious accusation, mortal. What sin have I committed? What evidence do you have to support it?
Ihr habt Menschen gegen ihren Willen in dieser Stadt gefangen gehalten.
These people were all dead when my servant found them. I gave them a second chance at life. Would you prefer to have simply ceased to exist?
Vielleicht.
Then you still have the option to end your life should you wish, and you are no worse off than if I had not intervened. Accordingly, I reject your argument.
Ihr habt hunderte Menschen schrecklich bestraft. Einige würden für geringere Sünden bestraft und andere haben überhaupt nichts verbrochen.
Every one of those people was guilty of failing to ensure their peers lived virtuously. They failed collectively, and so they were punished collectively. The Romans understand this, as did the Greeks before them.
Kollektivbestrafung gilt da, wo ich herkomme, als eines der schlimmsten Verbrechen schlechthin. Wenn unsere Rollen vertauscht wären, dann würde ich auch nicht wollen, dass ich euch für die Sünden anderer Leute bestrafe.
Ah, but I am a god, and you are a mortal. Why would you expect me to treat you as I treat my own kind? You are not a peer. You are not a respected equal. Let me ask you this. Do you treat insects as you wish to be treated? Do you care for their well-being as you would your fellow man? Do you ensure they have food and shelter and protection from predators? Do you give them rights?
Nein.
Of course not. Because that would be absurd, just as it would be absurd for me to treat your kind as equals.
Euer Volk und das meine können nicht so verschieden sein, wenn ihr in jemanden von uns verliebt seid.
My love for her does not mean I am not superior, now that she is mortal.
Inwiefern ist euer Volk meinem überlegen?
Where to begin? Our lifespans exceed yours by thousands of years.
Ja,
In
toll.
which time we accumulate vast wisdom and a mastery of technology you cannot begin to imagine.
Warum ist man durch Weisheit und Technologie überlegen?
Because that is the source of our power over you.
Ihr meint also, ihr seid nicht verpflichtet, uns fair zu behandeln, weil ihr mächtiger seid als wir?
You could say that.
Wie sagten schon die römischen Stoiker, behandelt eure Untergebenen so, wie ihr von euren Vorgesetzten behandelt werden wollt.
My kin have no superiors.
Aber sagtet ihr nicht, Jupiter sei euer Anführer? Es gibt eine Hierarchie innerhalb eurer Art.
That is true. Go on.
Behandelt ihr Menschen so, wie ihr es euch von Jupiter wünschen würdet?
Make your point, mortal.
Ich will damit sagen, wenn ihr schon eure eigenen Regeln nicht befolgen könnt, wie könnt ihr dann erwarten, dass die Menschen es tun?
Let me ponder that for a moment. If you are right, then it would follow that all this time I have been in the wrong. But no. The very thought of it grieves me. How can I accept
Den Menschen
your
doch sehr ähnlich.
when doing so would make me a tyrant and a monster?
Es ist die Wahrheit, ihr habt Gräueltaten begangen und ihr müsst euch dazu bekennen, ihr seid kein Monster, ihr seid ein Mensch und ihr habt einen Fehler gemacht. Das könnte ihn beleidigen.
Wait, what? What are you saying?
Menschen machen Fehler, das liegt in unserer Natur. Alle Menschen neigen dazu, Sünden zu begehen. Wir alle tun es früher oder später. Nein, das.
You have spoken eloquently, and yet, if what you say is true, it follows that my wager was fatally flawed from the
Ja, war sie.
But that would mean Jupiter, Chrysepida's father, who knew more about you than anyone, proposed a wager I could never win. Why would he do that?
Vielleicht hat er auch einen Fehler gemacht. Vielleicht wollte er, dass ihr die Wette abgebt, damit Proserpina frei von euch ist. Vielleicht fühlt er sich von euch bedroht, weil er keinen möglichen Herausforderer auf Elysium haben wollte. Vielleicht hat er euch zurückgelassen, weil selbst eure Verwandten euch nicht wollten. Autsch. Vielleicht hat auch er einen Fehler gemacht.
A mistake? But he is the best and greatest of us.
Ihr seid nicht besser als wir. Ihr seid ein machtbesessenes Monster? Nein. Vielleicht habt ihr, als ihr menschliche Gestalt annahmt, auch einige menschliche Schwächen angenommen.
Your words sting me, mortal. But perhaps it is what I deserve. As difficult as this is to admit, I have suspected as much for a long time now.
Ah!
And I cannot deny it any longer.
Getroffen!
I've been so fixated on taking my beloved to Elysium that every time one of you sinned, it wore away my hope of being with her again. In time, I began to despise your kind for making her believe that you could ever be better than you are. But my rage was not born of malice. Quite the opposite. Everything I have done, I did because I loved her. Who knew this empathy of yours, which you celebrate so much, could have such a dark underside?
Jetzt
This has
verstehst du.
gone on too long. It is time for me to let go of this form, of her, of all of you. But know this. If I abandon the wager and leave for Elysium, neither she nor your kind may ever ascend.
Das ist in Ordnung. Ich glaube, ich will das gar nicht wissen. Wir wollen lediglich zurückkehren.
Very well. I will have Charon make arrangements to ferry the others. But as for you, be aware you will be separated from the rest.
Warum?
Once this exodus begins, the events that brought you to this moment will never have taken place, and you will have created a paradox. What will become of you is difficult to predict, but that is the risk you have taken by interfering in the natural flow of time. Now, are you ready?
Ja.
Farewell, mortal.
Auf Wiedersehen.